Hey guys, coming from the series premiere of The Path, Season 1, Episode 1, What the Fire Throws, and I was really looking forward to this premiere. I wasn't, like, hyped out of my mind for this or anything, I definitely will say that. In fact, I didn't really know too much of what the show was gonna be. I knew it was about a cult, and that's really it. I didn't want to know much going into it. I hadn't heard much about it. I heard this was getting really good reviews, but nothing incredible, kind of what I expected it to get, kind of just like, it's great, it's not perfect, but I was definitely really looking forward to it, and especially after Legend 2263, I want to continue watching Hulu shows because that show has showed me what potential Hulu has. And they really are trying to branch out more, and yeah, I definitely see that with The Path. I mean, The Path, without a doubt, is I think their biggest show yet. This has a star-studded cast, which we will get into, and I will say I don't love this show yet. I don't think the show is amazing. I didn't think this was an amazing year, but I did think this was a very good setup. It was a very good setup. There were some things that I didn't love about this premiere, but I definitely really did love where the show is headed. I think that this is going to be a very good show, and I'm definitely interested in seeing what the rest of the show could be, because I really don't know exactly where we're going from here, which I'll get into, but let's just get into this episode because there's a lot to get into, and I want to get started with it because I really love the way this episode started, because right away we kind of see why this cold is such a big deal, because we see the series opens, we see survivors of a brutal New Hampshire tornado. It's a terrible, I mean, there are babies screaming, there are people wandering around dazed, and there's one woman in particular who's just looking for water to drink with very little success. Nothing's really working. All she gets is laundry detergent, which obviously she's not going to drink bleach, doesn't want it in her life. So luckily for them, they have a cadre of Meyerism trucks roll in, and volunteers in identical blue t-shirts pass out water, reunite families, and load some of the people onto their trucks to further help at their religious compound. And Meyerism is a philanthropic religion, basically, we learn in this episode, and that's basically what this episode's about. It's about learning what Meyerism is, learning why everyone in this town is pretty much a Meyerist, and we then move to Parksdale, New York, where a gathering of Meyerist family and friends say a prayer before dinner, and basically that's this huge thing where they're saying thank you for this gift of bread. Is to saying these vessels are bodies, though it may have the energy to create a more beautiful world and break through our blocks and barriers in this life and ascend the ladder of enlightenment so that someday we may free of these earthly forms. Which, by the way, let me get to that first scene. I love the way that first scene was done because we don't really know what's going on. Everyone's just looking around for things, and you see right away that this guy Cal is really helping them out. He really is kind of like their god. He's like saving them, he's bringing them to the light, and you can see that this really has changed a lot of things. I mean, they're all practicing Meyerism and things like that, and they say that they all express gratitude for this day and every day, and that we found the ladder. There was one spirit whose name is the truth, and a couple of the men who just returned from religious retreat most speak of it in glowing tones. However, we see our main character Eddie seems a little weirded out by it for whatever reason. He just isn't happy with Meyerism. We don't really know what it's about, but for whatever reason in this episode, he just doesn't understand it, and his wife Sarah seems to think that he's had an affair with one of the women who accompanied him on the retreat, and that's the thing that didn't really work for me as well in this episode. Why do we need her to think that he had this affair? I don't really know. I get that he's being secretive, but she's thinking that he had this affair, and that's like the one thing that didn't work here. I thought that whole thing. Also, I did think there was a very abrupt start. Like, we get right into this family, we get right into them saying a prayer and everything. It was an awkward way to start, I think, definitely. But right away you see that Sarah suspects he's having an affair, and basically we definitely see that, she's starting to suspect that. Her mother kind of tells her, not to think that, but basically she puts on a sexy slip and seduces him, and they have sex, basically, but this doesn't stop him from sneaking out of bed to make a secret phone call, and Sarah tries spying on him, but doesn't catch much. So she definitely is suspicious of having this affair, and there's so many shows that I've seen where they're like, oh, you're having an affair, you're having an affair. It's at this point the most cliche thing you can do, and that's like the one thing that just didn't work in this episode. I wasn't a huge fan of it, I didn't love it, and that was just the one thing I didn't love. So the next day, Sarah meets up with Cal Roberts, and basically, Cal, Sarah, and Eddie, we found out go a long way back. Apparently, they used to passionately discuss how to fix the world, but while Eddie and Sarah have settled in the family life, Cal maintains that religious fervor. Like, he's kind of, this is his life. Like, his life is literally being a Meyerist. That's his life. He doesn't really have much of a life besides that, and, Sarah and Eddie have clearly kind of departed from that, which I kind of do like seeing. And I do like how these three characters characters have history. I definitely do like that. But basically, Cal maintains the religious fervor. He's now the de facto leader of Meyerism in the absence of its founder. And Eddie then drops off their son, Hawk, at height, which I like seeing these two catch up. You see why these two were close and everything. And I think they set that up really well. And Hugh Dancy, just seeing in this role, I think is really interesting to see. He definitely does a very good job. We'll get into that. But basically, we realize he's now the de facto leader of Meyerism in the absence of its founder. Now, we don't know what happened to its founder. They're no longer there. But we know that Cal is now the leader. He is the one that everyone looks up to. He is the one that everyone just is, he's admired by everyone. Everyone thinks he's like this great, like, god or whatever, and it's pretty crazy to think. I mean, this one guy pretty much just determines everything, and it's really crazy, but basically, that's kind of how Meyerism is, that everyone just admires him because he helped them with the whole, situation in New Hampshire. Definitely helped him out with that. So we see Eddie drops off their son Hawk at high school, and like any teenager, Hawk wants to get out of high school, and he thinks taking the vows of a Meyerist priesthood would be the best way to do it. But Eddie doesn't really know if it's the best thing to do. He clearly does not really support Meyerism. We don't really know why he doesn't support it, but for whatever reason, Eddie just doesn't really support Meyerism, and you can just see that Eddie does not really want his son to follow Meyerism, which is very interesting. So I found that part of the episode to be very interesting, and we don't really know what's off about him, but there's just something that he just doesn't like. And back at the compound, some followers are partaking in spiritual and physical exercise, while the New Hampshire tornado, and I like the way this was done, the spiritual exercises, there's like one where they're like release the pain or whatever. It's really interesting, definitely, and you really do see that they're trying to do the right thing. Like, they really are trying to help them out, and we see the New Hampshire tornado woman, Mary, watches, and Mary is actually going to be a huge part of the show, which I'm happy about, because one, I really like the actress that plays her, two, I really am liking her character. Because basically, a self-described novice approaches her, notices that she seems sick, he fetches a doctor, who gives Mary some morphine to help her with her drug withdrawal, and we find out that basically that's what's going on, that she's having a withdrawal with drugs, and clearly she had a morphine addiction, which is very interesting, and the doctor tells Mary they're going to bring her back to the self she once was, and it's clear that this, disaster has really broken Mary. Like, she's not the same woman she used to be, and she really needs to get back into that, and that is one of the most interesting aspects of this episode, is the character of Mary. She's broken, she needs to get back to the way she was, and I can't wait to see how that turns out, because I'm really liking her character. So at school, Hawk and his Meyer's friends suffer some bullying during their pre-lunch prayers. It's not all bad, though. A girl named Ashley Fields won't stop staring at Hawk. His friend thinks that she's plotting more bullying, but it doesn't seem like it. And I'm thinking that these two are going to connect, Hawk and Ashley. I don't know, they don't really have much interaction in this episode besides that, but I like where this is going, and I like that Hawk is kind of bullied because of the fact that they pray before lunch, and you can tell that a lot of people do not support Meyerism. There's a good amount of people, and that's one of the things I love the most about this episode, is that while Meyerism is very admired in this town, and there's a huge population of it, to the point where people are praying in lunch, which you never see nowadays. I mean, anyone did that. I mean, everyone would think you're crazy if you did that. People are praying in lunch. I mean, that's how dedicated they are to this religion, and then there's a whole group of people that are highly against it, and that's something that I'm definitely looking forward to seeing, is those people that are highly against it. It's gonna get worse, definitely. I mean, it doesn't seem like a huge deal now, but it definitely is gonna get worse as things go on. So we get this other really quick scene. We see this woman named Alison. She observes an older couple, but before she can say anything to them, three men approach her wanting to talk. She quickly and mysteriously drives away. Why? We don't know, but she drives away, and we don't know where she goes. So Sarah tries teaching Mary some of the basic ideas about Meyerism, and I really like this scene because you really see what Meyerism's all about, because we still don't really know what Meyerism is. We know that there's, she says there's a real-life Scientology. It provides an outlet for followers to process their past traumas. That's what Scientology does. And she says that everyone has pain, but they try not to carry it with us. And she explains that their founder, Dr. Stephen Meyer, currently in Peru, finished up the last of his religious writings, and he was the founder of Meyerism, but he's not now. Now Cal is, and he's so holy, full of truth, that he's literally surrounded by light, which is very interesting. And Sarah was born to the sect, but that he's literally, basically, she was born to the sect, but that wasn't the case for everyone. Cal, for example, now I like that we got this backstory with Cal, because basically we find out that he came to the organization as a young boy, and he climbed up the ranks, and I'm sure we'll find out more of what's going on there, but basically, so far we can definitely see that there was definitely something that Cal went through. I like that we saw that, and definitely this is very interesting. And he clearly, of course, took over after this founder's death, and we don't really know exactly, but it definitely seems like Cal was someone that was kind of losing faith, and Steven really helped him out, really built him up again. I thought that's very interesting. So we'll have to see what's going on. That we don't really know why Stephen Meyer, what happened, and we find out at the end of this episode. But basically, Cal, I can't wait to see what's happening. I'm sure we're gonna find out more about that. But I like that they kept it kind of hidden. You don't need to reveal everything right now, and I definitely like that. And then we get the scene. This scene I really love because Eddie, so far, he's the main character. I wasn't really feeling it. I mean, Aaron Paul's a very good actor, but I just wasn't feeling it as much. Definitely, I will definitely say that, and I'll get into that when we get to his acting. But this scene, I really felt. He's telling a group of people how he came into the church. He had a rough early upbringing with only his older brother for company and protection. And one day, however, he came home to find his brother commit suicide, and this still makes Eddie break up. So Cal chimes in with details about how the tragedy drove Eddie into the arms of Meyerism, and that's kind of why he is a Meyerist, because of the fact that his brother died. It affected him, and clearly Meyerists are there to kind of take people's pain away. That's kind of what this is all about, is that they want to take your pain away. They want to make things better. And Eddie, just something about it, he's not buying at this point. We don't really know what it is. But later that night, Mary hits up Cal. She takes off her clothes, tried to seduce him, but he can tell that something's wrong, that her relationship with sex is a fraught one. And he's right. She admits that her dad used to sell her to his friends, which is crazy that we find out that he used to do that. I mean, just the fact that she was a prostitute, we find out. And Cal says that they can help her make it better. And again, I really love how Cal's trying to make things better for Mary. He's really trying to turn things around for her because she really went through shit. I mean, she's gone through shit. She was, almost raped by, she was sold as a prostitute by her dad, clearly, and definitely sex is not really anything to her because she's had it so much and she's very experienced. And I don't think Cal is nearly as experienced as Mary is, which is very interesting. So they're not the only ones up to something tonight. Eddie sneaks out and Sarah follows up because she knows that something is going on with him. And when she watches him drive to a motel and enter a room, it appears to confirm her worst suspicions about his affair because, again, she thinks he's having an affair, and we realize right away he's definitely not having an affair. We do see a flashback, though, which I was very happy about, to 3 weeks earlier. Eddie was on the Peru retreat, and drugs appear to have been involved, judging by Eddie's red eyes. And one of the women does try getting friendly with him around the bonfire, but then Eddie sees a vision of his dead brother and goes to dearly departed siblings. Of course, it's probably his PTSD a little bit, I think. But Eddie follows the apparition, which appears to lead him down a mysterious hallway to a door emblazoned with Meyerism eye seal. And we don't really know what this is about, but I think it's kind of a sign, and whatever Eddie saw behind the door, it changes perspective on things. We don't know what he saw, but it made him think, just, this is not right. Meyerism, I just don't support it. Even though he's supported it all this time, this has really made him think that Meyerism is just not right. Something about it he just doesn't support, and we don't know what it was, but I like that we don't know that because it keeps us interested. So when he returned home, he immediately went to the public library and Googled, is Meyerism real? Because he doesn't know if it's a real thing. I mean, yeah, sure, it's helped a lot of people, but has it really done anything? No, and apparently Meyerism either forbids the internet or Sarah keeps a strict eye on everyone's search history because basically there's nothing there really. So scenes from early in the episode are then replayed from Eddie's perspective. Apparently he was plagued by disturbing visions of his Peru trip all through sex with Sarah, which is very interesting. And in his secret phone call, he told the person on the other hand that he was having doubts. So clearly he isn't really buying Meyerism at this point. He's bought it up to this point, but right now he saw something behind that door that just made him change his perspective. And we don't really know what it's about, and I really do like that. So at a Meyer's meeting the next day, Cal proclaims that global warming and political instability are proof that their founder was correct and that basically civilization is going to collapse soon. He pretty much feels that the world's going to end and they really need to prepare for that. And Cal says that Meyer is finishing up his work transcribing the last 3 runs on the ladder, and from what Cal knows, that these revelations will not only make his life in the heavenly garden spectacular, it'll also improve the follower's life in the earthly presence. And Eddie asks when the writing be finished, and the directness of the question affronts Sarah, but Cal seems perturbed. Like, this really doesn't mean much of anything. I mean, he says that it's not a matter of will, but when the message is done transmitting to Meyer, which is very interesting. And I think that definitely made me very interested about what's going on there. Because he feels that he can make things better and he can really turn things around, you definitely see. So then we get this great scene with Sarah and Eddie. I love the way this scene was done, just everything about the scene. Without a doubt, not my favorite scene in the episode, we'll get to my favorite scene in the episode, but this scene I thought was fantastic. I love the way this was done. Because that night, Sarah and Eddie talk in the kitchen. Eddie admits the Peru trip did not go as well as he initially pretended, and Sarah asks him if he transgressed, which is a Meyer's byword for cheating. Very interesting. I like the way that was done here. And Eddie maintains that he was talking to a possible, who is a young person interested in joining the organization. Kind of, that's why they're called a possible, because they possibly want to join, but they're not necessarily going to join. That's basically what was going on there. And Sarah is still thinking that he's cheating, and Sarah says that she chose him over Cal, and Eddie's freaking out because he feels that she still had feelings for Cal and that she wanted to be with Cal, and that appears to be an escalation too far. They each back down, and it really gets crazy. I mean, Sarah accuses him of all these things, of him like lying to her, and he accuses her of lying. I mean, it really, you can see they have a very toxic relationship, and things just aren't the same as they were, and Sarah really feels there's something different about Eddie, and Sarah still thinks that something's wrong, and basically, he says that her intuition is off and that there's nothing wrong. He's basically trying to deny that there's nothing wrong when you know that something is definitely wrong with Eddie. But of course, it's not what Sarah thinks, because in flashback, we finally see what was behind that motel door, which I'm very happy about, because obviously I didn't want to, have that I want to know what was behind there. Basically, we see Alison, Eddie's vision in Peru, apparently showed him something quite disturbing, and he's trying to reckon with it. Alison, apparently a Meyer's escapee, is trying to help him, and Eddie wonders whether one vision is enough to shake his faith his entire life, and Alison notes that he did come to her, so it must have been something very powerful. So we don't know what exactly she showed him, but we do know that she escaped Meyerism. She kind of showed him that this is not the way to go, and that Meyerism is not as great as it seems, and it's not all it's cracked up to be. And that kind of makes sense. I mean, any cults, you follow them, you don't believe in what they're doing, it's going to end up really badly for you. And it's clear that Eddie doesn't really want to be a part of that, which is very interesting. So I like the way this was done. Definitely very interesting. We switch back to the present where Sarah's calling on Cal, and unlike Mary, she doesn't want sex, though she does hint at their shared history. Basically, she says that she was scared of him when she was young, that he'd sneak into her bed, his hands were like fire, and she thought that this guy could never love a person, he needs too much, and she thought that Eddie could love a person, but now thinks that she was wrong. And this is very interesting. Now we know why Sarah left Cal for Eddie, because of the fact that Cal, she thought, was kind of incapable of love. Like, he just didn't understand what love really was, and Eddie does understand the concept of love. So she tells Cal that Eddie transgressed, and she leaves, and she is convinced that Eddie cheated, which he clearly didn't. Well, we don't think he did, at least, but she's convinced that he did, and I like the way this was done. Like I said at the beginning, I was like, I don't know about this, but then I really like the way this is going, because it's not so much that he cheated, it's the fact that she thought that he could love, and now she's really kind of rethinking things, because he's just not acting like he was before. So this really gets Cal up enough to go wake Mary, and he says, let's go make it better. Let's go turn your life around. Let's go change things, because he knows that Mary's life isn't really great, and he wants to help her. So the next morning, Eddie and Sarah's younger daughter tumbles in the room, all sunshine energy, and he apologizes to Sarah for the tone of their previous encounter, and again, she just knows that there's something off, and she doesn't know what it is, and we still don't know what exactly Alison showed him, but we just know whatever she showed him, it really shook him to his core, and really made him change his way of thinking of Meyerism. So the best scene for me in this episode, without a doubt, though, was the climax from that sermon from Cal. Not only did it show how, I think, just how much of a authoritative presence he is and how well he's able to bring people in, but also shows how powerful he really is. I mean, this is someone that is kind of like Hitler in many ways, and I'm not trying to compare him to Hitler, but he's someone that can easily bring people in, and no matter what he says, people just listen to him, and he's just a very good speaker in that way. And he talks about a lesson about Plato's cave, that the classic philosophical parable tells a group of people imprisoned in the cave. All they knew about is the images they see projected on the wall in front of them. Eventually, one of the prisoners breaks loose, turns around, realizing that there's a fire behind them. People walking in front of the fire is what creates the image everyone sees, the shadow of reality. The free man then tries to teach the other person about the truth of reality and the light behind things, even if they turn against him. And in Plato's Republic, this figure is the philosopher, and Cal's telling it's him. Basically, he is this philosopher, and to prove it, he ends with a dramatic finish. He tears down the projection behind him to let it light from the windows and basically show that I am your God. I'm the one that's going to lead the way. Let me lead the way, and I'm going to lead you to happiness, which is what he wants to do. But you have to think, I mean, can he really do this, or is it really just bullshit? I mean, you really have to think that. So we see a bunch of audience members. They're stealing furtive glances at each other. The sermon is also interspersed with flashbacks, though, because Mary remembers what happened after Cal woke her up. He had her take him to her dad's trailer, and Cal demanded that Mary's father get on his knees. He begged her forgiveness, and when the old man spat in response, Cal promptly beat the shit out of him. He went as far to shove his face in a microwave, and I understand that Mary's been through a lot, but did Cal really go too far? I mean, you have to think, obviously, what Mary went through is terrible, but Cal literally beat this guy, and you don't really know if he went too far or whatever. It's very interesting. You can tell that Cal is very passionate when it comes to, being a Meyerist and sticking to that religion and helping out people push their pain away, because he clearly wants to do that and he feels that it's his duty to do that. So as everyone claps for Cal, Eddie flashes back to his vision in Peru. The door opens to reveal Dr. Stephen Meyer, we find out, is what that he saw, then furtively writing or studying, and he seems to be in a coma, who of course Stephen Meyer was the guy that started all this. He's hooked up to IVs in the bed, and there's no light around him, only a gigantic hissing snake, and that's how the episode ends. So what does this mean? I'm not really sure. I mean, I feel like it's trying to show that Meyer, what's really going on, it's kind of bullshit. Like, you really shouldn't listen. You really shouldn't be following this cult. It's not going to end well for you. And you really need to be careful what you're doing. But overall, guys, I gotta say, pretty solid first episode. There are a lot of things I really love about the show. Let's get into the cast here, because the cast is definitely one of the things that make the show great. Like I said, Aaron Paul, at first, I wasn't feeling it. I wasn't feeling like he was as into the role. But then I realized it was kind of part of it. He, I think, portrays his character perfectly of Eddie Lane, because this is a completely different role than Jesse Pinkman, and I really applaud him for doing that, for not just trying to do a Jesse Pinkman type role again. This is a very reserved man. He's a man that doesn't really know how to feel about these sort of things. I mean, he just feels off about Meyerism. He doesn't know if this is a good thing, but at the same time, he understands that this has been his life. He's dedicated his life to being a Meyerist, and he doesn't really know if he can just depart from that, which is very interesting, and I can't wait to see where that goes, because that definitely is very interesting. And Alison, I mean, clearly is someone that used to be a Meyerist and has been an escapee, and she's kind of showing him this is the way to go. So I'm interested in seeing really where that's going to go with Eddie and Alison. Alison clearly did get through to Eddie, but where's that headed? I definitely am interested in that. I like Sarah as well. I think Michelle Monaghan is perfect as Sarah. I love her character, because you can tell she really does love Eddie. She loves him, but she just suspects that there's something not right. Eddie won't admit to her what's really going on, because he knows that Sarah is so dedicated to Meyerism that if he said that, she'd probably leave him, and she'd leave him for Cal. And that kind of seems like where we're headed, that she's kind of regretting leaving Cal. But as we see, Cal is definitely very destructive. But without a doubt, Hugh Dancy makes this show. I mean, he is utterly incredible as Cal. Mainly because we already know he can be really creepy when he's Will Graham, but he gets to be that kind of character here, and I really think he did a great job. I absolutely love him as this character. He's not only destructive and very powerful, but he really thinks he really thinks that he's doing a good thing, and he really thinks that he can help all these people. But is it really that he can do that, or is it really bullshit? That's really what I want to know, because, they're all convinced that Cal's going to help them and that he's made their life better. But has he really done anything? That's the question. Do they just think that he did that? Is it just a belief? Did they kind of make things better on their own? We don't really know, and that's what I'm very interested in, because it seems like whatever Cal's doing is a very dark path, considering the fact that Eddie saw Meyer with that snake, and we don't know why Meyer left, remember. We don't know why he left exactly, and I'm sure we're going to find that out, but we don't know exactly why Meyer left and recruited Cal, and I'm sure we're going to find out more about that. And right now, all we really know about Cal is that he seemed like he was lost, and then he was brought into the lights, and I like that we saw that. But like I said, I think the main three are amazing, especially Aaron Paul's monologue. I mean, that scene where he's talking about how his brother committed suicide, and that's how he went to Meyerism, I thought was great. But Hugh Dancy's monologue toward the end of the episode, where he's talking to that crowd, and he's basically just bringing them in, kind of being like their god almost like a, kind of like a dictator almost, basically telling them, this is your way, or no way, this is the way to the light, I'm going to bring you to the light, you need to follow me, do all these things. I mean, it really is crazy, and he really just did it perfectly. He really get in this role, and I like that he's just not playing Will Graham 2.0, and I like that Eddie is not playing, and Aaron Paul is not playing Jesse. And that's the thing I love about the show, is that these are all actors we've seen on shows before, such as Emma Greenwell, who we've seen as Mandy, and this character is not at all Mandy. This is a character that's been through a lot of problems. She's gone through drug addiction, clearly with morphine, and she's trying to turn her life around, but is Mary really doing the right thing? I think she's also kind of thinking, is this the right way to go? Is this guy kind of crazy? Especially the fact that he beat the shit out of her father like that. Did she really need him to do that? He felt that he needed to do that, but did she really want him to do that? We don't really know, and that's something I'm definitely interested in, is how that's all going to work with Mary and Cal, because it's clear that Mary, didn't really want much with Cal. Cal feels like he needs to turn around things for her, but she doesn't really know if he should do that, which is very interesting, and I really like the way that that's going. Hawk and Ashley, we didn't see too much with them, but we do know that Hawk doesn't really want to be in school, and he kind of wants to be a Meyerist, but Eddie clearly does not want him to do that. He does not want him to go in that path. We don't really know what's going on there, but Hawk and Ashley, let's see what happens. They're definitely interested in that. We did not get introduced to Detective Abe Gaines yet. We do get introduced to him, I think, in the second episode, which I am going to watch right after this review. I'm going to watch the second episode and review it for you guys. after I watch it, which I'm definitely interested in. Now, I love the style of this show. I definitely will say that. The cinematography is utterly stunning in this show. I mean, you really get that feel that this is a society that has conformed to Meyerism, and they feel that Meyerism is the way to go. Because, like I said, Cal really feels the world is ending unless they conform to Meyerism. That's the only way to stop things, which is very interesting. But again, is he telling the truth, or is he just very convincing in that way? That's kind of what you have to think. You know, is he really good at what he does? The directing here is fantastic. The tone of the show. They're not really saying, is Cal right or wrong? They're kind of just letting you judge it. Like, do you really believe in Meyerism? I mean, I kind of believe it, but at the same time, it's a very, very strong concept. The fact that one man is going to help everything. And that's kind of the idea with God, sort of. But there's also the idea that you kind of control your destiny. And this man kind of seems like he wants to make all the decisions for you. So you have to wonder, is Meyerism really a thing? Because of the fact that when Eddie looked at Meyerism, nothing came up, which is just very interesting, and I really find that to be very fascinating, the fact that nothing came up when Eddie searched Meyerism. So that's also very interesting. The score here is great. I really do love the score to this show. The intro is fantastic. I mean, just the way that that's all done, illustrated, it really looks like it's right out of like a book and right out of the Bible, which I think is really cool, and I definitely really do appreciate that, and I think it's really cool the way they did that. And I also think this is a very ballsy show, a show all about religion, something that you really couldn't do nowadays. It makes sense why it's on Hulu, because a lot of networks wouldn't really approve of this show, and luckily they did actually get the show through, and I'm definitely very happy about that. We need a show like this. We need a show about, you know, religion and is it really the way to go? Because a lot of people do think, I mean, you got to have faith in some way. That's just something that you have to have. But is Meyerism really the faith that you need? I mean, Meyerism in this case is the religion we're going to see on this show. But I'm kind of wondering, is that the only form? Is there other stuff going on there? We'll have to see. I think that's very interesting as well. I want to find out more about Alison, though, because that's one character we don't know a ton about. We know pretty much all we need to know about Eddie already. I mean, a lot of stuff was given to him in this episode, but we don't know a lot about Alison. I definitely want to find out more about her, because I think that's very interesting. What's gonna happen with Alison? Why did she stray away? What happened to her? Why didn't she think this is a good thing? And why is Eddie seeing these visions? Because we know she wasn't really there. We know that when he was on his tour, he saw this, and we don't really know why he's seeing this. What's getting him to feel this way? We don't really know, and that's something I'm definitely interested in. Why he's feeling this way? What's going on there? We'll have to see. Did he cheat? I mean, we are to assume he didn't cheat, but obviously Sarah thinks he cheated, so is she kind of regretting picking him over Cal? I think like that's kind of going on as well because of the fact that she picked him over Cal, so I think that's very interesting. But overall, guys, I know you guys saw this first episode. I really loved the direction the first episode is headed. I don't love this show yet. I'm not like head over heels in love with this show, but I do think as the episodes go on, it's going to get a lot more interesting. I'm definitely interested in seeing where we are headed in the coming weeks, definitely. I will be checking episode 2 right now because they released the first 2 episodes, which I think is really cool, actually, that they released the first 2 episodes. And we'll see you guys for my review of episode 2. Let me know what you guys thought of this premiere. Love to hear your thoughts on it. Is this show gonna last? I mean, I want to hope it's gonna last. That's a really good cast and a lot going for it, definitely. But is it really gonna draw an audience? I mean, it draws some really interesting points, but there aren't a lot of people watching the show. Like, I haven't heard many reviews. I've heard the reviews from, like, the big critics, obviously. But other than that, I haven't heard a lot of buzz for this show. So that's kind of why I went into it, not really knowing what was gonna happen. But luckily, I really did enjoy it. But let me know if you guys saw this show. If you did check it out, do you think this show is gonna be successful? I'm definitely gonna check out episode 2, and I will see you guys for my review of that. Okay, bye.